Welcome to the Rugby Bits podcast, and welcome to myself back to this podcast as well. And thanks for listening to this podcast wherever you get your podcast. Please subscribe and share this podcast with the rugby world and drop us a 5-star rating as well. For those that don't know me, my name is Thala. I sometimes feature on this podcast, and I'm glad to be back on the driving seat. Today, I'm joined by Shaun and Jared as we try to navigate podcasting through load shedding. And in this podcast episode, we'll mostly focus on the Springboks, their 36 points to 20 victory over Argentina, and looking back into the weekend's result and looking forward a little bit as to what they need to do in order to secure the Rugby Championship. But as always, we start with our first phase question. And this week was, what's your favorite story of a player in your team playing out of position for a game? Um, I'll maybe just ask Shaun, maybe if he has a story, but just before we get there, just to get a few stories here. One that's similar to mine is Sivu's Civ Breakfast, who's probably one of the best accounts on Twitter, saying that him as a fullback, he had to go into the loose head prop because all of the props were going down, and then he got blown for illegal scrummaging. I also have a similar story about packing down against the Uffies under 16 B props who were over 100 kilograms and having to scrum against them. That was not a fun day. Shaun?
Mine, I was reading these replies and I was laughing, and I love it. It's always a forward and a back. I mean, obviously they're two very, very different spaces on the rugby field. Mine is not a player that was moved on our team, but I was playing social, and we're playing in a social league. And before the game, I was chatting to a couple of mates that were playing for the opposition, and they kept saying, it's the usual stuff like, how's it going? Oh, yeah, we got injuries, or, some Oaks have pulled out and whatever. The usual stuff. You try and downplay everything. You want to gain every little bit of advantage you can. And they told me, no, listen, yeah, wingers. I was like, well, they're wingers. Like, they're fine. He goes, oh, yeah, we've got a bit of a problem. We had to move our 8th man out onto the wing. But he's a little overweight and he hasn't played rugby in many years. I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm sure he's okay. Anyway, they run out onto the field, and there's this tall guy, but certainly a brandy drinking ex-rugby player build about him. He's got a massive dad bod. He's like, you know what I mean? You're just thinking, this guy doesn't have wheels. He's going to run straight. That's the way it is. So first sort of sets up in the game. They send it out wide to him. We rush up in defense onto as fast as we could possibly go. And this guy turns on the feet. He had faster feet than Ches and Colby, and the Oak moved like an athlete. I've never in my life. We were all just standing there, cemented onto the field as this guy danced around 3 people that went to go score in the corner. And I was like, what the hell? So that was my story. It's instantly brought back to me when you posted that first phase, was this tall, tubby 8th man with the feet of a cheetah, man. I couldn't believe it. It was insane.
Yeah, that's actually quite similar to one of the stories posted by Sean Berg, saying that they had their hooker move onto the wing, but unfortunately he didn't have the chance to show his silky skills. Apparently, according to Sean, he had a step on him, he had great hands, he had a bit of gas, but he didn't. He only got the ball twice. So yeah, I think as a forward, I can definitely speak that that's probably the most unfortunate thing. Like, you stand in the back line for a little bit, you're expecting to get the ball. I think also, I personally also had a chance to stand at wing because of a yellow card situation, and I unfortunately didn't get the ball. But I was happy because they also didn't the opposing team didn't kick to me the whole time, so that was a positive for me. Jared, do you have any stories about teammates playing out of position?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of mine sort of come from school, where I played every position in the pack, and then we also had a situation where our fly half went down, and we didn't have a fly half on the bench, and our second row decided no, we'll go with the second row at fly half, and he ended up playing the rest of the year at fly half. He was brilliant. He just took on the role perfectly, and yeah, he was perfect for it. He always kicked for goal for us as a second row, like John Eelsal, but he took on the fly-off role perfectly and played the rest of the season there. So that was quite an interesting one. Maybe not the quickest fly-off ever, but definitely a solid option there.
I think that's the forward's dream, getting called into the back line, cooking, and then not having to go back into the forwards again. That man will be spoken about in all of the rugby clubs around the world as the man that escaped the pack. Jethro Georgiadis, he talks about a story that involves current Springbok, Damian de Allende, that he had to move from outside centre to flank because of a red card that one of the flankers got. And yeah, I mean, I think we can all imagine Damien doing some absolute carnage at flank for a game. I mean, he almost plays like a flank right now.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, he was quite big in school as well. I mean, he's a big guy, but I think he was quite big in school too. So I reckon I can just see him as like this tall, like reasonably skinny. Maybe he hadn't filled out yet. I don't know, but guy at flank just hunting people down with angry eyes. I even reckon he would have put on like a headband there, just to really fit in, not to get cauliflower ears. Backs don't want cauliflower ears.
Jared, what's your favorite like professional rugby, someone filling in a position that he doesn't usually play?
Oh, I quite enjoy Kwagga Smith when he got his chances at the wing for the Lions and that kind of thing. And yeah, we might see him play a few more positions for the Boks if the current trend continues. But yeah, I quite enjoyed that when he did that.
Oh, Burger Masco from flank to 9.
Yeah, that's another one, and I'm sure you remember it as well, Shaun. But there was a stage where Colby went and packed down at number 8 for Toulouse and set up a try from a scrum.
Yes.
So I try to remember, but I think they had a yellow card or something. That's why he went into number 8. But that was also brilliant. And then we also have the Leon back to Asova, who often packs down at number 8 for them. Like they just randomly do it in a game where they'll throw him at number 8 to get him to carry off the back, which is a scary prospect.
And let's also not forget about is another Fijian who plays for La Rochelle, but Levani Bottia.
Constantly playing flank.
Yes, he plays 12. He's played 12 for La Rochelle for a long time. He's played flank every now and then, but he was named in the Fijian squad as a forward. Like he's like actively at the moment. They can't really, depends what the coach sees in him, decides whether he plays 12 or blindside flank or open side flank, should I say. So, I mean, and that's happening at this moment. It's not like, you're injured, we've got injuries, you need to go play here. They're like, where do we best think he's going to fit? That's pretty badass.
And they did that with Basiliato as well, with Clermont and Fiji. He also played a bit of centre in East Day, and now he's properly a back row that just plays open side and number 8.
Yeah. Nemani Nadola, he played 10 at one stage and kicked for poles.
Yeah. Biggest 10 in the world. Like I can't think of a bigger 10 than that.
And he played 13, eh? Like
and fullback for Fiji.
Yeah.
Madness.
Mathieu Bastron, I think he played a bit of 8 this week. He stood in the centres a little bit as well for Toulon. I know he goes in between the two positions at this stage of his career.
Yeah, well, he's just re-signed for Toulon, and he wasn't initially named in the starting lineup and ended up starting at 8 for Toulon. But yeah, his move has been from the midfield into the 8th man position. He took a while. He was at Lyon, hey Jared, when he started that move more seriously.
Yeah, and then he went over to America and pretty much only played number 8 in America. So
yeah,
I think he's pretty much a back rower now. I don't think we'll really see him in the center. Yeah,
and he's the under 18. His deal with Toulon means he's the under 18 coach or assistant coach as well. So
something along those lines. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're busy working.
A nice coach to have. You can coach your backs and your forwards at the same time. He's a beast at the breakdown. So I think that's where why they've prompted that move.
Yeah, and also he's not a massive fan of cardio, so hopefully you get away with it at preseason.
I think my other favorite positional switch story is Johnny May packing down at flank, and that famous video of him. I don't know where he was scrumming. I'm not sure what plane he was scrumming, but he really did try to scrum with the English pack in that scrum.
Yeah, him and Kurtley Beale didn't do themselves any justice with those. Beale has a very similar video. I think Beale's is even worse than poor Johnny Mays.
And then flip man, name escapes me now. Winger for Exeter in England. He also plays flank.
Jack Nowell.
Jack
Nowell. Can't believe. I'm sorry, but anyway, he's packed down on the side, done pretty handy.
Yeah, Eddie Jones has said a few times that he wants to play him as a flank and all that sort of stuff. I'm sure, actually, if we send this part of the podcast to Eddie Jones, he'll be salivating at the prospect of playing people at different positions, because that seems to be his new fad at this time.
If Eddie Jones moves to a club rugby, he'll probably sign all these players up.
Yeah, damn straight. And there's also talk of Sam Simmons going into the into the centres. I mean, that's also another. That would be a brilliant move. I mean, the way he runs like a centre anyway.
Yeah, so we'll definitely get some assistant coaching roles.
And we're missing out on the Bath England league convert players in Australia at the moment. Remember, he did his massive switch. Yes, he did his massive switch, and they couldn't decide whether he was playing centre for Bath, and England wanted him to play flank. Now, there's another story about Oaks and not understanding about what's going on.
If you want to take it to the extreme, it was not too long ago that Eddie Jones was using Ellis Genge basically as a fullback, and every time the opposition kicked the ball, they would just throw it to Ellis Genge to charge it back at them.
Crazy. On Sam Burgess, where do you guys think he would have been best to play? Where do you think? Do you think he's a midfielder, or you think he's a flanker?
Flanker.
Yeah, I think a flanker as well. He's one of those players like I think it's pretty much like a Botia that you could have just, however you want to play, you decide where to play him kind of thing. You can have him like a Damian de Allende kind of centre, or you could have him as a fetcher or a hard-hitting blindside kind of thing.
I actually thought he was a better midfielder. Yeah, he could. I thought he was better in the midfield. I thought that was his position. He played a few times there for Bath under forward, and then England moved him to flank, and then it just all went tits up. I really thought it was a better 12, but I suppose we'll never know.
Yeah, I think that will conclude our first phase look into the different positions. And speaking of that, we have the Springboks that won 36 points to 20 in their match against Argentina, and we have a few. I think we can start here with the big news going into this week is the injury to Damian de Allende. He went off with concussion, and now there's a bit of a question as to who will be picked at fly half for the Springboks this weekend. The Springboks have also released their squad for this week's games. They've not drafted in a fly half. Unfortunately, the Morné Steyn bat signal was not working today. So it seems like the options at fly half are between Francois Steyn, Willie Leroux, and Paf de Klerk. So before we get into reviewing the game, I think let's just have a quick little debate about who that Springbok 10 will be. Shaun, I think those are probably the only three options that are left in the squad. Who do you think will take the 10 jersey for this weekend?
Well, now that they've named the squad, I think it really can only go to Frans Steyn. I think that is, if it goes to Willie at 10 and we bring and have someone else in at 15, like Arendse or Moody, or I'm not sure who else, we're not really going to have a recognized kicker. So Frans Steyn will start at 10. That's basically where all the signs are pointing for me.
Jared, do you want to push the Team Kwagga Smith bandwagon a little bit?
Yeah, well, I think you can try between Kwagga Smith, Oxenchair, or Steven Kitsoff, I think they would all
There
be
you
pretty
go.
handy.
Vincent Cox. Vincent Cox. You've been singing his praises in the midfield for months, and you don't even mention him.
Yeah, well, I don't want him to play fly off. I want him to play centre. He's the best. What did I call him? The best outside centre in world rugby. There's not one better than him. So we'll play him at 13, and we can play Ox at 10, and we'll get a dual playmaker, and we'll put Steven Kitsoff at 12.
Oh, imagine.
No, but Thala, I do love that Francois Stein's probably going to be playing 10 this weekend after our conversations down the years that you said, oh no, we can have Francois Stein covering fullback and centre, but there's no ways he's going to play fly off the Boks. So yeah. I know it's your pet hate about it, but we're in this situation, and yeah, it seems like that's the best call from here.
Yeah, they must have like that like respiratory machine next to the sidelines for Francois Steyn, because they're going to be doing a lot of running. I'm getting to rack as the number 10, so very keen to see that happening as well.
I tell you, I did mention this weekend that I think the Willemse de Allende Creel 10, 12, 13 is the hardest hitting in the world, like the hardest hitting 10, 12, 13 in world rugby at the moment, because no one is getting through, but they all love to get their shoulders on people. I reckon Franz Steyn could maybe elevate that 10, 12, 13 smashing defensive train a little bit. Like, he also loves to get his shoulder on thing. And the nice thing about 10 is guys are running at you straight on, and he's not scared to get stuck in.
No, definitely not. I also wonder if we going to get Andre Esterhuizen into the starting lineup. Maybe add a bit more distribution and kicking through him, because I think he's a left-footed kicker as well. So that gives us another option there. And I think the main thing is that if Willie starts in, he'll probably run the attack. And if Franz Steyn is starting a fly half, he will then take over the responsibility of defending the 10 channel. So I don't think it's a terrible idea, but I do think we need Willie Leroux in our starting lineup this week.
Yeah, that was also the thing for me, is obviously every rugby group is debating this at the moment. And my issue with, like, the guys were saying, like, we want Willie to start at 10. I'm like, but who's going to play fly half for the first two phases? Because Willie, you're not going to get the best out of him in the first two phases at fly half. He really only comes into his own in the second, third, fourth phase. And that's why it's best for him to stay at 15. Also, I think we got our fingers burnt, and I know the Springbok coaches would have worked a lot on it, but we got our fingers burnt by making too many movements. I think we need less movements. I really do. I think we need to replace our 10, and that's what we need to do. We need to replace our 10. We don't need to move our 15 into 10 or do anything else. I think we need to just replace our 10, keep everything the same. Curtly Arendse possibly onto the bench. I think even Moody has deserved his chance to stay, or earned his chance.
So you wouldn't switch up scrum off at all with all this change, because
no.
We generally play a lot off of 9, so there's a lot of responsibility on Hendricks' shoulders again this week. So do we stay with Faf on the bench? Or are we bringing Kobus Reinach in on the bench? So you just want the only change to be in the 23 jersey because we're losing Franz Steyn?
So, yes, I do. We're losing Willems there, but I think, yes. The thing is our game plan revolves around our 9 and our 10, and specifically our 9 kicking accurately. And right now, our most accurate kicker and form 9 is Hendricks. So bringing Faf in, who is sort of in form, but we even saw on Saturday, he does, like, he runs crazy sometimes and does silly things. Like when he conceded that penalty for tackling the player out the air, I got nervous. Well, I didn't was out the air, but I got nervous because I thought he was going to do something crazy. But I'm not so sure about his kicking. So I would literally base my decision on who plays 9 on currently who's kicking better, and that is Jaden.
Yeah, I think that actually does sort of answer the next question I had, which is who then, if Frankenstein has an injury or Sinbin or something, who then steps up. So it'll be interesting to see. We'll have like a French top 14 feel to our back line with maybe two scrum offs at 9 and 10 and two tens at the back three and all that sort of stuff. So looking forward to some of that craziness that might come. But let's not look into the game itself. And I think the best way to describe it is that it was a game of two halves. And you can just see with the stats there that with possession in the first half, the Springboks had 66% of the ball. And in the second half, the Argentinians had 64% of the ball. Let's maybe start focusing on the first half. And Jared, what did the Springboks do so well in the first half that got them that 22-6 lead at halftime?
Yeah, we always talk about the Boks being a momentum-based team, and I think what we did well this weekend is once we got momentum, we kept it, and we kept applying the pressure. We weren't as clinical as we probably would have liked to be, but we sort of kept Argentina back in their 22 and kept piling the pressure on them, and eventually they broke down. I mean, the way Hendrickson ran through for his second try, it was wide open. Yeah, obviously it was his only try. The other one was given as a penalty try, but I think that was just where we won it, is that when the opportunities were there, we did well enough to take some of them, and we just kept them in their own half, kept piling on the pressure, and yeah, we kept getting penalties, kicking to the corner, taking the points when it was a nice easy shot at 3. So I think that was a very big part in what we did well in the first half.
Yeah, and it seemed like in terms of players that stood out, it seems like Malcolm Marx and Damian de Allende had big games, especially in that first half, Jared.
Yeah, they definitely did. De Allende was brilliant in his pre-contact work. He stepped quite a few players and managed to get softer shoulders. I thought Jasper Visser was just as brilliant. Like, he really is performing for the Boks, even though he's hitting game 38 or 39 since his last preseason. So yeah, he's really battling on for the Boks and producing. I thought Marx was very good throughout the game. He did have a few wonky lineouts, which I think helps that we got Bongi coming back, because it's two pretty much 80-minute performances from Marx. So I think it's going to be good that we have Bongi back.
Yeah, Marx was incredible, and as you mentioned at the end there, it's two 80-minute performances from him. So it's been quite something, and it's really added something. It's weird, but something new to our game, because we're so used to having our front rows do almost a 50-50. So that was great. I thought the first half that was the cleanest and most well executed half of rugby the Springboks have played in years. We really were good. Like, the referee wasn't forced to really make any major decisions. I mean, obviously the penalty try, which is a no-brainer, but the game flowed because we were so on top of the game. The thing is the stuff we're not used to seeing by the Springboks is like we started seeing. Like, they were ruthless. They took their chances. They were expansive, but they were tight. They really executed really, really, really well. And I thought halftime came at a very bad time for us, because for once in our life we got points when we went into the 22, and we should have won by 40 odd points easily. Like, we really were on track for a massive win, and we fell apart in the second half, which I'm sure we'll chat about now. But yeah, it was great, and I really think it was led by Marx and de Allende. I think if Damian de Allende was the glue for our backline on Saturday that a lot of people choose to ignore. He was carrying, he was passing, he was doing all sorts of stuff. The stuff that he created allowed other people to do other things. And I don't think that he ever gets the pats on the back that he deserves for his play. Most of the time, people will say it's Lukanya that's doing all the whatevers, how they like to sort of deflect it around. But I thought our midfield did really well in that first half. especially Damian de Allende. Between him and Marks, they were our man of the match by far. I think Marks won it deservedly, but Damian was next in line.
I think it was great with de Allende and his dummy jumps in the front of the line out in two of the two of the line outs in the first half. So I quite enjoyed that we had those 12+1 line out drives in Argentina's 22. That was good fun.
It's brilliant to watch, changing things up a little bit, and also is basically saying if we're going to play our maul back into form, even if we have to put everyone in.
Yeah, I just really enjoyed that, watching Damian Willemse go to the front of the lineouts as well. Like, they really tried to sell it that de Allende would jump with Damian Willemse lifting him. When last did you see a fluff on an attacking ball back down in the front of the lineout for driving maul?
Yes, they're not spreading it there now.
Yeah, my Damian Willemse in the Bok 12 jersey agenda must rest for another day. It seemed like Damian de Allende had a great game on Saturday. But then, yeah, Shaun, you mentioned it. There was a bit of a turning point in the second half, and it seemed like it seemed like there were a lot of reasons, but Argentina was obviously able to keep the ball, and up until the yellow card talking point with Kwagga Smith, it seemed like the Boks were still able to keep them out of the try line, and then once they started conceding penalties, and obviously they had the yellow card, that's when the points started to rain in for the Argentinians. So what do you think the yellow card is the talking point? You want to talk about that?
Well, the Kwagga Smith one.
Yeah.
I do want to chat about it, and we can probably tackle it at the end because I want to more chat about like the fallout of it. But I don't understand how people have an issue with it. He was high; it was around the neck. That's the thing. I know, Jared. I mean, I'd love you to jump in after this because I know we don't necessarily agree on this, but for me, it was high. It was almost seatbeltish, like he was wrapped around the neck. It's a penalty. I think he would have scored a try because he was able to place the ball. The thing is a lot of people are talking about, but how are you supposed to do it 5 meters out? You can't take that away. Well, if you can't do it from 5 meters or from a few meters out because you're in a bad position, then that's the whole point of what the opposition are trying to do. They're trying to compromise your defense so they can score a try. So I don't think it's such a massive thing. Like, some people are saying you need to change the high tackle rule, the law, and all that sort of jazz. And I'm just like, flip, man, he got him around the neck. It's against the law. How are you going to change things? Well, are you going to just change it for that purpose because you feel that was unfair? It was your side, or what's the situation? But so, yeah, that yellow card, I just think, I mean, it was rightfully a yellow card and a penalty try just from the proximity, I believe. But in terms of where the Springboks fell off in the second half, we were really loose and erratic. We were all over the show. And I think that what I found, and Jared and I did chat about it, and he highlighted it more for me and reinforced it. But where I thought that the issue lay was our 9 and 10 weren't controlling the game as much. So what happened with Jaden and Damian at 9 and 10 in the first half didn't happen in the second half, and we really struggled, and we weren't getting the impetus and the go forward ball and all that sort of stuff. So then it's a massive learning space for them. We still won, and we got a bonus point, which is great. It didn't help our points difference as much as we wanted, but first prize was winning, second prize was bonus points. So we got those two boxes ticked. And the guys will learn from it and how to control the game when the opposition get on top of you.
Jared, let's look at it from the Argentinians' point of view. What can they take for next week's game from that 30 minutes of control that they had?
Yeah, I think they can take a lot from it. I think even in spaces in the first half, they did well to stop our driving more, even if it was illegally. I think it was a bit of a lottery at some of the breakdowns, whether you got away with hands in the ruck or I think one of the biggest takeaways they can really be happy with was their scrummaging performance. They got absolutely pounded by the All Blacks, and then you face a tougher test in the Springboks, and we just didn't come to the party with our scrum. I think Kempson was saying that the Argentinians weren't taking the hits, and that's why the Springboks were overextending or pushing too early, and that's where we got penalised. But we didn't adjust, and fair play to them. They really took us apart in that area. I think Trevor Nyakani had a pretty poor game when it came to the scrummaging in the second half at Tarted. So I don't know if maybe we'll see him back at Loosehead and he regained some form there. But I think it is an area of concern for the Boks after that. I think for a lot of the young players in the Argentinian side, they really stepped up. I think Cinti had a very good game and was safe under the high ball. And I thought Bofeli was incredible. So, I think that there were periods of the game where Argentina made the most of their chances, and they really did put the Boks under pressure. And I mean, they scored a try off of pretty much the same move that the Australians scored a try against us, and we tried to pull it off against the Australians in the second test as well. But so just I don't want to hop back on the Boks, but I disappointed by that. Is that two teams can score almost exactly the same tries against us, and we're not adapting to that. So, I think there's a lot of positives they can take away from it. They also played parts of the game without their 9 and without their 10 as well. So, I think they still kept it reasonably tight considering all of that.
Yeah, and it looked like a massive game for their loose forwards as well. If you just look at the stats, it's either Juan Martin Gonzalez is top of like defenders beaten. Pablo Matera had a lot of tackles. Marcus Kremer is obviously just doing Marcus Kremer things, and that loose trio is just powerful. And Sean, I'm not sure how much you know about Juan Martin Gonzalez, but he seems to be one of the finds of this year's URC. He's been having great performance after great performance these last few weeks.
I don't know a hell of a lot about him, but he is class. He's holding it up and doing the business. But I must say, you have kind of thrown me a bit of a curveball there, so I can't really add a hell of a lot more. My bad.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that. I thought you'd have encyclopedic knowledge about these players, and you're studying them all for the last 3 weeks.
Don't be sorry. I was just, as you started talking, I was like, oh damn it! I know exactly what's going to happen here. It's just the way of the world, man.
But yeah, maybe let's move on then to what the Springboks are going, what the Springboks could do with the rest of their team for Saturday. I think, as Shaun mentioned earlier, maybe learning from the New Zealand Test match, you don't want to change too much, especially in a big must-win game like this. Yeah, but on the other hand, Jared, like there's a few considerations, especially when you look at the minutes of players like Jasper Wiese in terms of the last 12 months, or Malcolm Marx and him having to play 18 minutes the last few weeks. Someone like Evan Etzebeth hasn't had a test match off. And there was this maybe promise of changing up selection for this weekend's games instead of going with using one of the Argentinian test matches as a test to expose some depth. That seems with the squad that's been chosen and seeing some of the players released, such as Salman Murat, Ulrich Loh, Joe Dweba, and Warwick Gelant, it seems like the plan now seems to be to play the best team available. So, yeah, do you think then that they will do that? They will play the best 23? Do you think there might be still some changes even within that smaller squad? How do you think Minaba will approach selection, given that we're recording this podcast on Monday before the team announcement on Tuesday?
Yep. Well, there will definitely be some changes that you can sort of pick up in who they've released already. So, we had Ulrich Loh in match day 23s with him leaving the squad. We need to fill that space. So it'll be interesting whether we see Peter Steph du Toit go straight back into the starting lineup, whether he comes in on the bench. Because I would assume it's between Peter Steph and Dwayne Vermeulen that are coming back into the match day 23. And pure, like you say, I even touched on it earlier, but Visa has been playing some insane amounts of rugby over the last year or so. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him drop out of the 23 as more of a rotation thing. Dwayne coming back in, Peter Steph coming back in, even Quacker Smith maybe even taking over the 8 jersey. So I think that's one of the places where we will see some change. I think Bongi might come straight back into the starting lineup. And that might cause a bit of change with Kitsoff and Marks both going to the bench. I think that's a real possibility. I think they will want to sort out our scrummaging, particularly in the second half. And I don't think Argentina will start Scalvi, who had a very strong game against us. So I think he will remain on the bench to tighten up Argentina's scrum, and I think we'll want to get a more fresh Stephen Kitsoff going at him. He's a very big boy. I think he's 145 kilograms. So yeah, bit tough to push that body back.
Yeah, the thing is, I think it's a great shot is rotating our front rows, is starting Yakani and Bonambi and resting our starting front row that we had now, is because if our scrummaging doesn't work, we have Frans to fall back on, who, if he has to stand an extra meter or two further back, he's still got an extra 10, 15 meters on his kick. So at least from an exiting point of view, we will be in a slightly better place. Obviously, he'll be under a little bit of pressure starting at 10. So it's quite a good thing. And then obviously, as you mentioned, Jared, the fact that we can bring on what is probably now considered our first choice front row, or our strongest front row is maybe the best way of putting it, currently on current form, is bringing them on later to finish off the game. It's probably not the worst shot. And the Springbok coaches have happily moved those things around, the pressure points around certain places to deal with certain things. But I think most things that would have like the side that is named tomorrow, or on Tuesday, should I say, when everyone's listening to this, the side that is named will very likely have been I'm pretty confident would have been picked a couple of weeks ago, barring one or two injuries. So I think we'll see the changes. But there's the carrot dangling of winning the Rugby Championship and winning it with France at 10. How amazing.
Yeah, I agree with you, Shaun. And I think a lot of their plans to actually rotate players was not only based on Argentina with claiming a few upsets and the whole competition pretty much blown wide open by that. I think a lot of our injuries and that played a role. I don't think we didn't really expect to lose Andre Pollard. We didn't expect to lose about 4 wingers. We didn't expect to lose Lukanya. Like those are pretty key players in key positions. And yeah, we wanted to get someone like Jesse Creel a bit more time in the competition. And he's got a lot more than I think they were expecting to give him at the start of the competition. And yeah, the same could probably be said about Joseph Dweba, about Dion Fourie. So I think a lot of our rotation that we would have liked to do has been forced through injury. And yeah, we might have gone with 14 changes like we did against Wales in the second test, but we've got to a point where we've already made a lot of changes throughout the competition. That's not really needed, and we've built that depth through having those untimely injuries.
Yeah, good call.
Yeah, I think taking a step back, you can see that players that maybe weren't involved with the Springboks a year ago, or as involved a year ago, are now, getting up to, 10 tests and having a lot of like quality tests against the best opposition in the world. So Jaden Hendricks has played now big games against New Zealand, Australia, and Wales and Argentina, as has Damien Willems at 10 and 15 and wherever. Like, those are just two examples. Jasper Wiese has now established himself as the number 8. And ironically, it's probably in the positions that we've had some concerns about the long-term depth for the Springboks, with Willie Leroux and Dwayne Vermeulen being obviously a little bit older than the rest. now that we have really good options that have been developed by Jacques Minapa. So it's come to a place now, I think there's really good depth and a good sort of like 30 to 40 players that have been exposed by the Springboks that we can probably call upon for later tours and for the Rugby World Cup as well. And then just a word, maybe, Jared, on the players that have been added to the team. And maybe you can explain this to me because I'm also a little bit confused. So they've added Kirtley Arendse and Springbok. Why both of them into the squad?
I think they want to get a closer look at Sabu Nkosi and see how he's tracking. Like, I think that's the core there. I think it's very similar to them bringing Bongi straight back into the team the minute he was fit, is that they do have plans for him, and they show him that they still have plans for him. And quite interestingly, he played on the left wing for the Bulls this weekend, and he generally plays on the right for the Boks. So maybe they're going to look at him playing on the left instead of Mapimpi and give him Mapimpi a rest. Mapimpi's pretty much played every game this year. I think he only missed the one against Wales, that second test against Wales, but otherwise he's been a consistent presence in that backline. So possibly they're looking at him to maybe come in there. And I think Arendse had to come into the squad because we are losing Warwick. I think we've forgotten, but Warwick Alliance has made himself unavailable for the November series. So I think they wanted to get Kurt Lee back in the side and maybe have him training at fullback and looking at him as an option at fullback as well. But yeah, he wasn't dropped from the squad either. He was just out because of his suspension. So I think they've been having conversations with him, and he could also come straight back into the team.
Yeah, that I was also having a think about it. I think Arendse, the inclusion of Arendse is exactly that. It's is him coming back after being suspended and out with the brain injury. So he was the first choice 14 at the time. So he would come back. That's how the book setup works. With regards to Nkosi, it's an integration thing. It's a getting back into the mix, like building on those bonds, the player bonds, the group bond, the bond with the management and stuff, getting back in the mix, getting the feel for it, not feeling like an outsider anymore, because he's been out the squad for a while. And he also was our premier right wing at one stage. He was our first choice, and that was just the way it was. And he's class. He offers, as you mentioned, he played on the left wing, so he offers left and right wing. But he's a big guy. There'll be times where we want to have a massive, bulky 14. We've had Creel there and we've had there, but we could always. I mean, Moody's a big guy, but Nkosi, we forget that he was really, really good. He fell a bit out of favor of the Sharks. He had an injury. He's moved to the Bulls. He's got back to fitness. I just I find it. He's a class player. So we just reinforcing those bonds and getting everything sorted again in his player integration. So he doesn't feel like he hasn't met half the side when he returns.
Yeah, so it's probably more so to look at him. But yeah, maybe it might indicate that there might be some rest for Mapimpi, but hopefully, of course, he's only played one total of one game in the last few months, so you don't want him coming in cold like some of the other players that we've had coming in cold during the course of the season. But yeah, that probably indicates what we can expect in our match day 23 on Saturday. Probably another player that might fall out of it, but had a big impact in the 5 minutes that he played was Deon Fourie. He had a big turnover, Jared, that probably helped us win the bonus point at the end and secured the match, because at that time, I think the Argentinians it was 22 points to 20 when he had that turnover penalty.
Yeah, and then he played a role in Mark's second try as well. He was also part of that backline forward move, or whatever you want to call it. So I'm not too sure if Deon Fourie will drop out of the team completely, we might have him included as a loose forward in the team somehow. So, yeah, it could be another thing that we go back to a 6-2 split on the bench. I think it is a possibility. And there was murmurs that we would get Kwagga Smith and Dion Free on the bench as loose forwards, and even having Marks as a loose as a bomb squad member as well. So we could go with that all-out assault on the breakdown in the latter stages with those three coming off of the bench.
Okay, and then Shaun, let's do some maths, and I think for people that have followed our South African national football team, we can call this some Bafana maths, where we have to look at what we need to do in order to get top of the log and what we need to rely on for other teams in order to do that, and all the permutations and considerations. But the Rugby Championship is nicely poised where mathematically all four teams can still win the Rugby Championship after this weekend. We have the Springboks we have New Zealand first on top of the log at 14 points. Then we have the Springboks at 14 points as a result of points difference. And then Australia and Argentina can still win if a few results go their way. So, Shaun, the simple equation is that the Springboks probably, regardless of what happens in New Zealand, they probably have to win with a bonus point. And especially if New Zealand wins and they get a bonus point, they'll have to get quite a big win against Argentinians at 5:00.
Yeah, so just to clarify a few things. So the log is separated according to a few things. So obviously, number one would be points. If two teams are tied, then those teams are split according to the wins against each other, which in the South Africa, New Zealand, or anyone's situation, South Africa, New Zealand are 1-1, South Africa, Australia 1-1, Argentina, Australia 1-1, Argentina, New Zealand are 1-1. So, it all depends on what happens this week. So that's the first thing that is split. The second thing. The third thing is points difference for the tournament. So it will possibly boil down to that. And it's very likely that it will. Currently, the All Blacks are plus 41 and we're plus 28. So there is quite a big difference. It's a 2-try swing that we're looking at the moment. Essentially, I tell you, Australia winning on Saturday would be great, but both of them drawing would also be great. Or them drawing the game. But whatever we need to do, if the All Blacks don't get a winning bonus point, it would be great for us. And then we need to just then get a bonus point and win. But as things are likely to unfold is we would probably need to beat Argentina with 3 clear tries, so getting the try bonus point, and then put on about 20 odd points over them to increase our points difference.
Yeah, I just want to jump in there with Shaun saying I know a draw would be nice. I think New Zealand losing would be nice as well. And a lot of fans aren't happy with Nick White at the moment, but that Eden Park record really needs to go. I would love somebody to finally end it, and if it's Australia this weekend, I'll be pretty happy with that, even if Nick White scores the winning points to do it.
Yeah, and listen, the only problem with Australia winning it is they'll be level on points or possibly a point ahead of us. So, but yeah, I think listen, if they draw it, then New Zealand are then 2 points ahead of us. But yeah, I think the exchange this week that came out between Nick White and Matthew Raynal afterwards was great. The thing is what people don't realize is Australians lost a game that they really thought they were in a chance of winning. They figured it was the ref's fault. I don't think it was. But I mean, they still wanted to win. So they're really they're still pumped and charged on it. So, everyone loves to hate someone, and Aussies or England or whoever it is at the time. But I tell you, Jared, you're 100% right there. The All Blacks are there for the taking. They need to be taken. So Australia winning would be great for us in terms of our Rugby Championship opportunities. because I don't see us not getting a point or 2 points out of the game against Argentina.
Yeah, I agree with you, Shaun. And the All Blacks never let us play them at Eden Park, so we're not going to be able to beat that record anytime soon. So I would love that record to go. That's all. That's what I'm most looking forward to.
Yeah, and there's a small, but there's still a chance for Argentina to even win the Rugby Championship. They'll need a lot to go their way, including New Zealand getting 0 points from their match against Australia, and Australia only getting winning but without a bonus point, and them absolutely pasting South Africa. But anything is possible. Jared, I'm sure you might be aware, but our record in Durban is not great compared to our record in other places around the country.
Yeah, I don't particularly like it when the Boks play in Durban. Having gone to Durban and seen them get pasted by the All Blacks, so the Argentinians quite like it there. So hopefully we can change that, and it will be a nice weekend that we see the All Blacks lose in Auckland, and the Springboks win in Durban over Los Pumas, and we get a bit of a change of the guard.
Yeah, this is definitely the closest rugby championship in the relatively short history of the tournament, with it having 4 teams. And I can't think of another rugby championship that went up until the last game. I think the last one was, 2004, when we had to beat the Australians, and I think actually, ironically enough, in Durban. Judge, can you guys remember another Tri Nations or rugby championship that went to the last game?
No, I can't. I mean,
No,
Tri
I
Nations,
can't.
it happened a fair amount, but I can't remember the Rugby Championship going down to the wire, especially going down to the wire where it's almost a four-horse race still. I think that's the big thing.
Yeah. And like every team has some form of like skin in the game. So yeah, it will hopefully mean that we'll have big entertaining games and a big final weekend, because all the teams can at least do something and aim for something, even if it might be the most unlikely. Now, Sean, let's say the Springboks are, they need 30, 40 points in order to win the rugby championship. Do you think Jacques Nienaber has it in him to change the 15, maybe go all out attack, put Kanan Moody in the midfield, put Spunkosi into the team with Kirtley Arendse, and then just let the boys play and let the boys cook?
Yeah. I can't even say that that's a good call, Thala. But I think if anything, Jacques Nienaber has shown that he has brought out a different style of attack, and he's totally been working on it. With the side, the players have embraced it, and they're starting to make it work. The thing is we need to. There are a couple things that have been our Achilles heel. We have gone to sleep for about 20 to 30 minutes in almost every single game this year. That is the one problem for me. So we need to work on keeping that intensity up and keeping that going. So if that stays, I think that's our number one problem, is making sure that we keep that going. The personnel on the field, we won't need to change too much unless there's an injury here and there. But Jacques also showed that he's happy to pull someone after 20 minutes if they're not doing the goods or if they're struggling. So I think it all points in the direction of Nienaber's not scared to make these decisions. And tactically, he's phenomenal. So I think he's loving this opportunity to really go out, because we've got nothing to lose. We've really got to go out and play to win. So I think we've got what it takes. The other thing that is our Achilles heel is that, excuse my language, is that damn inside ball that we, for the whole year, have not been closing that gap. The sides are doing really well to pick that out on us every now and then. We've done good to close it, but in that low intensity period in our game, we're not closing that thing. And that's a defensive discipline and our intensity. And that's what we're lacking. And that's what the boys need to bring out. And we've got players that are going to be fighting for positions in the future, and they're going to have to show it. So in short, no, I think Nienaber's definitely got the plums to make those decisions on field, pre-game and during the game. And I think our players need to put their hand up and really go out and slaughter them.
Yeah, I think we have a lot of exciting rugby to look forward to this weekend with all these permutations. James, I think let's finish off with a few predictions, or with predictions for the weekend. Jared, what's your prediction for both the New Zealand Australia game and for the South Africa Argentina game?
Oof. So I'll be bold this time, Thala, and I'm going to call it a Wallabies win at Eden Park. And that's not going to be a bonus point win. It will just be a win. And the Springboks are going to win the Rugby Championship with a bonus point win in Durban, a big one.
Okay, Shaun?
Oh, Jared, I love that. We don't even need a big one if we get a bonus point win, but I think the boys need to have their mindset that they must score 60 points in order to keep that intensity and the go forward going. For me, I think Eden Park is going to be 28-25, and I'm going to say that's going to go to the All Blacks. My crystal ball hasn't told me whether it's a bonus point or not, but I'm hoping it won't be. And I believe the Springboks are going to go out and grab a bonus point win in Durban. It's hard to see us scoring more than 20 more points than Argentina if we look at what happened on Saturday in the second half. But if you look at the first half, you almost think we could score 60. So it really is a bit of a lottery at the moment. But I think the Springboks win with a bonus point, and I think the All Blacks win by a ball hair. But I'm going to just go out on a limb and say don't get a bonus point. And again, yes, like Jared says, we win the Rugby Championship with France staying at 10. Who would have thunk?
Yeah, maybe mine's not a prediction, more of a hope. I just wanted to go to the last minute. I think that'll be a fantastic edition of the Rugby Championship.
This is the Springboks we're talking about, mate. This is not the Six Nations where Ireland and England and Wales are all in the running. Like, this is the Boks. They must win by 100-0. It should be over after 10 minutes. We should have dominated by then. Don't you dare. This is not entertainment, bro. This is the Springboks.
What's life without a little bit of stress?
Have you not been watching Springbok rugby this year? Oh, no, you have not. Listen, just quickly before my electricity gets shut down, I just want to, it's a public service announcement, but it's a public thank you to Kooks, who was unable to go and have beers for the Springbok game, but went out of his way to make sure that he could have beers so the Springboks could win. And I tell you what, we left it to the end and got a bonus point try. And those beers that Kooks had on Saturday were basically the beers that win us the Rugby Championship. So anytime anyone ever sees Kooks, please buy him a beer and thank him from the bottom of your heart. He is a vital part of the Springbok management.
Yeah, we're still unbeaten when Kooks has a cold one in front of him. And we are trying to, Shaun, we're trying to make sure that there's no flights from Joburg to Durban on Saturday so that Kooks doesn't get to the rugby to watch the rugby match live.
Very cool.
I think we need to just reverse some of these curses, but we can't take the risk this week. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that is our look at the Springboks win against Argentina and a little bit of a preview as to what they need to do in order to win the Rugby Championship. And as Shaun has mentioned, we're going to try to have a few other podcasts during the course of the week. We'll try to have a podcast looking at the URC, go into some depth about the Bledisloe, the last few minutes of the Bledisloe Cup first game, and look into previewing the teams once they come out. So thank you from all of us at Rugby Bits. We are sponsored by bet.co.za, our wonderful sponsors. Please go to their website for any of their markets for this final round, the Rugby Championship as well. Get a few of those combo bets going for if you want to predict some good things. And yes, thank you so much to Shaun and Jared. We're going to try to go through all of this load shedding in order to get you some podcast content this week. Thanks.